So hi, today I will interview Matthew Gordon Eklund, who is the founder of Arco Isis Sanctuary in Guatemala. And it's a place for personal transformation, connection to nature, community, healing, and inspiration. And I've spent the last 2 weeks here, and I can truly feel the benefits of staying here. I've really moved from one place and one feeling, one inner feeling to another one, and I feel so empowered, relaxed, and recharged. So I really want to share this place with more people. That's why today we're gonna go in the depths of how Arco Isis Sanctuary started, where this idea came from, because the place is located on top of a mountain. It's a very unusual site, so it made me very curious to know and find out how this all started. So hi Matthew, welcome on Positive Social Impact. So if you want to introduce yourself a little bit.
Hello everyone, my name is Matthew Eklund, my last name. I'm the founder here at Arco Isis Sanctuary and the Mountain Sanctuary Tea Temple. I'm a musician, an artist. I love gardening, and I've been studying meditation and internal arts for the last about 13 or 14 years, and I have a lot of experience with plant medicine as well. Over 21 years of practice with that and different experiences.
Yeah.
I'm a yoga teacher.
All of that, so that's amazing. And so you've built a retreat center in the mountain on top of Lake Atitlan in Guatemala. And it takes a little hype to climb up here, but it's totally worth it. And here we're very close to nature. It's really amazing. And I really wonder, where did that all started? Where did this idea came from?
Yeah, well, I'd say the idea got started when I was living up in Bellingham, Washington, and I was going to college, didn't really have much direction. I was staying downtown in a one-bedroom apartment, and I was kind of I was rock climbing a little bit, but mostly I was just sitting at home, like in between class and stuff, and I didn't really have much connection or community. And friends and I had always talked about having some land that we can farm and garden and kind of live in nature and kind of get out of the living in a box in the city kind of thing. And later that kind of evolved. I started practicing yoga, and I studied at the Yogananda community actually. And I actually saw a template of people living in community together, gardening and doing permaculture and practicing yogic ideals. So they were meditating and doing music together, devotional music. And so my idea to get land and start farming kind of turned into, let's get some land and start living in a spiritual community type thing where we're all kind of supporting each other with some higher ideals. And
Yeah, okay, I see. But why Guatemala, and how did you find this amazing lake that I feel really amazing?
Yeah, Guatemala kind of found me. I had never really thought about Guatemala. Back in 2016, so about 8 years ago, my girlfriend at the time had lived here for 2 or 3 years, and she went down here for a yoga teacher training, and she invited me down. I fell in love with the place. I got to kind of experience the community, and I was like, wow, like I didn't really know a place like this existed. I got to meet a lot of foreigners from all over the world. And the next year I sold all my stuff and I moved down here and started my first yoga retreat ever, actually. I'd been teaching yoga for probably about 4 or 5 years. And so I had the idea to lead a retreat, and this place is actually a healing arts and retreat center mecca. There's a lot of people that come for retreats down here. So it's kind of it's tourism, but it's also a healing arts, personal transformation type tourism. So people come to get their yoga teacher training, experience or learn about different massage therapies or meditation or a lot of the indigenous plant medicines as well.
Yeah, and maybe I can precise for the audience that the exact place where we are is in San Marcos, La Laguna.
Yeah.
Because there are so many small cities and villages around Lake Atitlan, but this one, San Marcos, is very special because there's such a huge community of foreigners who come here for healing and taking their spiritual path a bit further. So it's a very special community with very accessible events. Like, I only arrived a few weeks ago and I very easily met people, found where to do things, where to make friends, and where to experience a lot of new things. So it's really interesting. And yeah, so then I'm now curious about Arco Isis, this sanctuary. How, I have no idea how building this looks like from day one, and I guess day one was many years ago. So if you could share a bit about that.
So I have a really interesting story about how I found this place and how the land specifically came into being. I had owned a kombucha company for, at the time, 5 years in the States, and I had done some entrepreneurial things before then and had some money saved up. And I had the idea, this dream to buy land. But I wasn't here for that originally. I was here to lead a yoga retreat. We did a dynamic retreat called The Joy of Transformation, actually. And one day I was walking down in town, and this local guy was drinking beer on the side of near Circles, near the bakery, and he asked me for some money for more beer. And I was like, no, but if you teach me Kek Chikel, I'll give you some money. And so this guy, Chico, ended up being my Kek Chikel teacher in the town square. He gave me, like, I think 2 lessons or 3 lessons, sort of begrudgingly. And
what is Kek Chikel?
Kek Chikel is the local indigenous language in this valley and then the next valley. And on the other side of the valley, in San Pablo and San Pedro, San Juan, Santiago, they speak a different language, which is Sutuhil. So I talked to my house landlord guy who owned the guest house I was staying at, and I was like, oh yeah, this guy Chico is my Kek Chikel teacher. And he's like, not the Chico that's been in jail more times than he's been out of jail. And I was like, oh, and he's like, not the Chico that robs people in the valley. And I was like, and it turned out that was Chico. And I had told him where I lived. And so I was like, I didn't know anyone in the town yet. And so I was a little nervous. And because one day I was passing by and his friend said, hey, if you're looking for any land, let us know. I have a friend that's selling some land. And so he comes knocking at my door, his friend actually, and I was a little scared to go into the mountains with him. But my guest house owner went with me, and he turned out to be a good friend. So he showed me a place up above the Yoga Forest, which is now Kawak Forest, and then he showed me this place. And a guy from across the lake had purchased this land 30 years ago, and there was no structures on the land. It was all coffee land, and there's some avocado trees. Nothing like what you see now. It was very well manicured, small coffee trees, and just like no brush, nothing. And he owned a lot of properties and was wanting to sell this just to move on. And had I waited, I kind of thought about it because it was a big deal, and I was like, is this too far up the mountain? It's about a 15-minute pretty strenuous hike to get up here, and there's no road access.
It's not 15 minutes.
What? 15? More?
More. Yeah.
Okay. So I came up here and I climbed the trees. I couldn't see around the property because it was all coffee, and so I would climb the trees and hang up in the trees and sit and listen. And there was you just imagine it was just a forest up here. And I was like, would people come up here? You know, is it even a good idea? Is this a good idea? And
is it too high, too hard for people to come?
Yeah. And so I finally said yes. And actually, right when I said yes, there was someone else looking at a good chunk of the whole property here. So I said yes at the perfect time. And I bought the land, and the owner of the land ended up being a materials broker for me. And then actually we had our neighbor, Antonio Mendoza of the Mendoza family. He came up and was like, wow, okay, you know, do you need any work, you know, or do you have any work? So I was like, sure. And so this elderly gentleman became my first worker, and we got to work with the fence. This is about a 3.5 acre property, and it's bordered just on mountains and more coffee land and corn land on the other side. So next thing you know, I had 3 older guys working for me, and they were building the fence around the whole property.
Okay.
And next thing you know, we built a house, and that's when he got his younger nephew involved, which was Walter Chial Mendoza, and his brothers. They were all carpenters, and they ended up being with me for the last 6 years. The elderly gentleman slowly started moving on, and Walter, he's exactly my age. He ended up being the materials guy and the organizer for all of the projects that we ended up building here.
Yeah, wow. And did you work with an architect to design all of that? Because
no.
it looks very intentional, and I wonder, you know, how much was planned ahead?
Yeah, so I actually made schematics. I did a lot of drawings of this property, and we had a lot of other templates for retreat centers, because I was like, well, this is actually going to cost a lot of money, and it's way more money than I have. So we need to think about how are we going to generate revenue to pay for this place. And so retreat center was perfect. I was like, we'll have transformational retreats, we'll have yoga teacher trainings, we'll have plant medicine, all the things that we love to do, kirtan, devotional music. And what was the question again? Oh, did I design this stuff?
An
so
architect.
we built it super organically, and I am very lucky because we had competent builders, because there's a lot of builders. Everybody's a builder here, so you could end up with some funny stuff. But I was lucky we had really good builders from the beginning. I drew everything off pencil and paper, and they just built it. And I've never had an architect. We did, for this house, we did have a schematic. We were halfway through. We actually built this house off cell phone pictures with drawing, cut like I took a picture and then I said wall, windows, so that's kind of how this place happened. Like for the beautiful wood, we have a 3-story wood cabin here. I just drew a picture of a box with 2 decks, and I told them to make it their art. And that was a theme for this entire place, was we have these Guatemalan artisans, like carpenters, and they started carving animals into the wood. They started doing designs that I never could have asked for or thought about. And so all of the details that you see in this place was because I was just like, make it your art. So I gave them total freedom to build something beautiful, and then the result is they put all the love into it, and they took their time, and they put all of their creativity into the place that I don't have. You know, maybe I do, but I'm not a builder. It just kind of happened, and that was a good move, because in this culture, I found when you're trying to come from the Western mindset and you want everything done spec, people have a lot of very hard times trying to get them to do what they want versus being like, here, do what you want. And this is an idea, this is the rough draft, and make it your art. So that actually ended up paying really well here. Yeah.
So that's interesting that you have planned things, but not overly planned. So there was room for creativity and also for local people. Right. Just not arriving and, building something very Western or very American here, but having something made with the local community, which is really important. And so do you rent this place for retreats, or do you organize your own retreats? And
yeah, in the beginning, I was organizing and producing events more often than I have in the recent years. Really, it was because it was a lot to juggle the infrastructure of this place and host retreats and groups and promo and all that. So I produced 2 6-week, one of them was 8-week and the other was 6-week residencies, where we had over 20 facilitators. I think we had over 100 guests come. And it was basically like a artist residency of transformation and personal development and yoga, and it was called Living Heart Alchemy, and it was brilliant. But since then, we've pretty much scaled that back because it's a lot of energy, and we've basically rented out this venue to other groups who have like a yoga teacher training school. We work with 2 yoga teacher training schools, and we have probably a dozen other clients that book with us almost every single year. So we've had women's retreats up here, we've had plant medicine, we've got the Honey Queen from Brazil coming next week to serve ayahuasca and other ancestral medicines. We've had personal development stuff, like high-level coaches come through here, all sorts of fun stuff.
yeah.
Concerts.
Yeah, and also we can say that there's a tea temple on Arco Isis.
Yeah, so we're here now. I built a lot of this place, I guess to continue that story. I went head over heels into debt building this place. I had enough to about finish the fence and buy the property, and so I was running out of money, and I had already booked this place. Because I have so many friends that are retreat organizers. They were like, sure, yeah, wow, we'll host at your space. But I didn't even have a temple yet. And so we were moving full steam ahead. We had probably like 10 guys here working, and I ran out of money. And so I learned that I could borrow money from other people. And so that first like asking for help was a big lesson for me, because I was like, wow, I'm just not able to produce enough money here, even though I also was harvesting all the coffee from this land, and I was taking it back to the United States and selling the coffee. It just so happens that this place has some of the best coffee in the world. So I took about a total of 9 hard money loans to build this place, and I was about $250,000 in debt, and of course it was nowhere near done. And that's about the time when Travis came into the picture. I was calling in like a dream partner for this project, and I was very protective of the space, and I never really wanted it to be fully like about business. It was more of a lifestyle venture for me in a community, and of course it has to make sense in dollars. But Travis came into the picture 4 years ago, actually right before the whole coronavirus thing, and he was born in the same hospital as me 7 days prior in the same area. And so our astrology like lines up perfect. And he ended up becoming the partner in this place. So now I'm a co-owner of this whole place. And he matched all the money I had put into it, and helped a lot with the organization and what it takes to really run a place like this. So that afforded me the ability to build this home here, which we're sitting in. And the home has transformed into a tea temple. I started practicing the way of tea, Cha Dao, about 3 or 4 years ago, and it kind of just took over my whole life. So I started since an online tea company, and I do in-person ceremonies and Chinese tea arts here. This is actually one of our tea tables, and this room is actually where we do ceremonies. And we use tea, which is the Chinese tea plant. So we use tea as a plant medicine, and it's really just a subtle aid for meditation. So it's not as strong as some of the classic plant medicines that we all know about, but it does give you a feeling of calmness and awakeness, and it really helps for meditation. And so that's what I kind of teach, these really subtle arts through drinking tea in a meditative way. And we're also now opening, because the house is finished, it's getting finished. Probably by the next 2 months, it'll actually be done. And we'll be doing tea-related groups here, concerts, meditations, ceremonies, and I have my 2 rooms that I rent as well. So it's a beautiful project that's kind of happening as I'm continually creating, that's bringing people here. And then we offer tea ceremonies to our clients and groups that come here. So we'll have like 25 yoga students up here kind of meditating with tea. And it's really cool because a lot of people that come through here are very receptive to tea because they've either had a lot of experience with plant medicine or like energy arts and internal alchemy stuff like yoga or meditation. So.
Yeah, and last time we had a tea ceremony here, I heard you say that you had some visions at some point during maybe a shamanic journey or something like that, way before this all came into your life. So I was curious about that.
Oh yeah, okay, so I can talk about a few of those. So I have over 21 years of experience using entheogenic psychoactive plant medicines. Began with psilocybin mushrooms when I was 15 years old. And I attribute those things to really saving my life. I was born in an area where a lot of my friends ended up on hard drugs and heroin, and the psychedelics kind of opened my consciousness, ended up bringing me to yoga, and kind of moved me into a way where I was more spiritually focused. And the first time I drank ayahuasca was in 2013 in Peru. I went and sat with some indigenous people in the Sacred Valley in Peru. And the second night, we did 3 nights. The second night, I had visions of this place, and I had visions where everywhere I looked there was terraced garden hillsides, which is exactly what it is here. I was associating it to Machu Picchu at the time because we were in Peru, and Machu Picchu, this place is very Machu Picchu-esque. It's built on terraces, and it was this realization. I hadn't even been to Guatemala for another 4 years, so it was 2016 when I first came here. And as this whole thing started to unfold, I was connecting the dots like, whoa, like I've had visions about this place unfolding. And then my first year before this, before this project existed, I was in a psilocybin mushroom ceremony down in town. And this place is called Arco Isis because in that ceremony in particular, the symbol of Isis came to me in my third eye, in my inner vision. It was like a logo. It was really a logo that was just there. Every time I closed my eyes, I would see the symbol. It was the ankh with wings. And I was going to call this place Arco Iris, which is Spanish for rainbow. And my friend, good buddy of mine who kind of helped me start this place, he Freudian slipped when we were walking town. He was like, "Oh, you're going to call the place Arco Isis?" And something clicked in my being, and I was just making the first piece of like a photo with our name on Photoshop, and I changed it from Arco Iris to Arco Isis, and it was just like, whoosh, like I felt it. And so from then on, this place became Arco Isis, which is the arch. Isis is like the divine feminine matriarch goddess of Egyptian and Atlantean mythology. And so the Arco Iris is the arch of the eye, but Arco Isis is like the arch of the mother. So it's kind of like the divine feminine. This place has like a big feminine healing energy to it. And we're in the forest, and so that's how Arco Isis began to...
And the energy of the place is pretty high. I mean, once I arrived here, I felt very supported by the land. So I think it's a good name for this place. So what's your wildest dream about this place? Now you seem to be in a phase where you're like, oh, it's almost done, almost finished. Yeah. But I guess a place like this always has so much room for creativity. So, do you have any other dream for this place?
Yeah, well, I feel like this place has been birthed, and there was a long birthing process that was very hard. And I feel like the hardest part is over. Like now we have years of experience of working with the infrastructure of food and chef and guests and all the things that it takes, dealing with the problems that, you know, inevitably happen at any retreat center, but then also one that's kind of tucked away in the forest that's inaccessible.
Yeah.
Right now, the tea sanctuary, the tea temple is my excitement of doing things that are tea related here. And what I see is that this place will continue to be a community retreat center, and the gardens, the plants have been establishing and growing, and the ground is really fertile here. There's probably over 100 fruit trees on the property. We've got probably 40 banana trees. Just moving towards greater sustainability and harmony, just weaving the plants in with the infrastructure. And my ultimate goal is that this place is run so well that I don't have to hold the place up on my shoulders.
Yeah.
And I see that happening in a big way right now. And it's such a deeper joy now to be here, especially during high season when we just have groups and groups on end. And we have guest relations manager. I have a partner now that shares in the load of this place, because at one point in time, I was the only English-speaking person here, and I was the host for 6 months on end, like group on group on group on group, before we even had infrastructure, and the pipes would break, and people would quit, or you know, the place would almost burn down. Or that's happened before, not on our property, but we've had really close fires, running out of water. Thankfully, knock on wood, it hasn't happened in a couple of years now, but in the beginning there was a couple summers where we would have to pulse water and really conserve water, and so we've been met with all sorts of challenges. And so now this summer for me right now is I'm actually really enjoying the space and enjoying all that I've worked so hard to create. And I would love to just exist here and make art and music and be fully nourished for people who come here, so that they can also be nourished by this space.
Yeah, and I guess that running out of water is something we learn when we are here in Guatemala. My first hotel here, I got moved from my first hotel because we didn't have water anymore for like 1 or 2 days. It's something that never happened to me before, and as European, I mean, we don't know about that, not having water, and then what do you do? So I may have a suggestion for this place. I think the element of water could be added to this space.
Definitely.
So I really envision a natural pool here. That could be amazing. And I have a question about the season. So you say there's a high season and a low season. So if you can explain a bit more when people can come here, what they can find.
Sure. So we've used low season, which is like the end of April up until November 1st. That's the rain season here. And as you can see, we're in the middle of rain season, but it's sunny out. It can rain pretty hard here about 3 p.m. And then there's torrential downpours almost every night. We've done a lot of work with our paths and all the mud and stuff to make this place more habitable. But we've also used rainy season, low season to build our infrastructure. So the minute I had the temple done, we were booked, and there was only tents here. There didn't exist any structures of cabins or anything. And so we've used that green season, which honestly is my favorite time of the year. It's very quiet in town. It's very lush, very green, beautiful weather, beautiful clouds up and down the valley. So we've been kind of developing the space to where we could function during this time of the year, which now we're here, and it's, we're about 95% there. High season begins around November 1st, and it really picks up in December, kind of around the solstice. You get all of the tourists from Canada, the United States, Europe, where it's cold in those areas, and they want to leave and go somewhere. And typically that is dry season here in Guatemala, so it's perfect. People come here, and this place basically turns into a nonstop festival. The lake at large there is so much going on, a live community of ecstatic dance and concerts, and so that's when the majority of our groups come, and we're basically booked solid here it's a very different energy here from November. We have our first group and we'll have about 30, and then we'll be booked solid, maybe with some small breaks until the end of April.
Wow,
and
it's very intense.
It's so intense, it really is.
Yeah.
It's now that I can exist here in the empty season, I feel like I can handle the high season. But before, I would do high season for 6 months here, and then I would go to the United States to summer again for selling coffee. I would sell coffee and espresso at festivals that came from this land, and I would make quite a bit of money actually selling espresso. But I did that for like almost 6 years straight, where it was just summer to summer to summer to summer, and I got so like exhausted, like deeply exhausted. And now I'm starting to feel nourished because I'm able to be here during rainy season and take kind of a restorative few months. So I'm actually excited for high season now, which is unique because I've always been like, working and then trying to finish our construction to open. There's been so many times where we've opened the place and we still had a month of construction, and so we had groups here with construction, and it was just like because the dormitories weren't done, and so we had people booked in the dorms, but the dorms weren't done, so we had them intense. It was just like, it was intense.
Yeah, but actually what I can say is right now is green season, so low season, but it's totally worth it to come here at this time of the year. I really came here first to swim in the lake, and down in the bay I've been swimming like every day for several weeks, and it was just me in this wonderful landscape. I've just had the best swims of my life, and it's not crowded, and also Arco Isis is very peaceful. I'm here with a German couple, so it's the three of us for a few weeks, and it's a really small community, but it's exactly what I needed, like super small, very discreet, and so I really like this mix of loneliness, but also having a little bit of company, and also being around the animals, which is a big thing for me. So it really balances the experience. So it can be interesting to come and stay here during green season, definitely. So thanks for sharing all of that. And I'd like to finish with a little story. Last time I really liked when you shared the story about that guy who got struck by lightning and how it changed his life, because positive social impact is first and above all a soul mission, and I believe that the universe really brings people exactly where they need to be for them to be healed and to be served. So that's why if you trust in your intuition, at some point you really find exactly what you need to find. So I really like that story because it's a little extreme example of that point. So yeah, if you could tell us about this, it would be awesome.
Yeah, so I think this conversation started because occasionally there's some really powerful lightning storms that come through here, and we're on the top of the mountain, and we have the only structures on the top of the mountain, and so I think lightning has hit our property before. We don't have a lightning rod yet, but it's just one of those things where when you're in the middle of a big lightning storm, you're like, whoa. And I just happen to have two friends who have been struck by lightning before from back in Washington State. And one of the guys, as a child, he had some condition in his inner ear where I think he was born that way. And for many years, he was seeing double vision. And he had vertigo, like he was very dizzy and was seeing double vision, and he was intensely suffering.
Yeah.
And he was struck by lightning probably, I think, when he was like 9 years old or something, and it cured his condition.
Oh, wow.
And he's one of the most positive people. He's always happy. He's never complains. He's such a happy person because he spent so long in intense suffering. And my other guy didn't do so well when he got struck with lightning. He actually ended up having some health complications. So, the good comes with the bad.
Yeah, but I think it's pretty amazing to have stories like that of things. Like even in our entrepreneurial journeys, it's funny how sometimes something goes super wrong, and after that there's something so much better for you that shows up. And so many times it's like that. And so you really learn how to let go of your way. I mean, the way you want things to happen, because life has always a better plan for you. So it's really interesting. And I guess building a place like this wasn't easy during all those years. And I think the spiritual power of your mission is that you kept going, and it's about keeping going with the little information that you have here and now, and just envisioning what is the small next step that I can take. And from doing that for 8 years, here you are with this amazing space. And so I think it's a really good example. And I also wanted to share something about spiritual entrepreneurs, because I work with spiritual entrepreneurs most of the time, and it rarely is so constructive. I like that here the spiritual energy has been put of service, of building something very material. So, and it's also a business, and that can bring abundance and wealth and all of that, as well as spirituality and art. So that's why, from my perspective, it's a really big accomplishment.
Thank you. Yeah, if there's any testament to trusting your intuition and following your dreams, this is it.
Yeah.
I didn't know it was going to be like this. I didn't think that far ahead. And I actually have a friend who is a long-term hiker, and his motto is inch by inch, it's a cinch. Yard by yard, it's hard. And there's, of course, times when I was trying to wrap this whole place around my head and I was just going crazy because I couldn't. But yeah, it's I've gone through different stages of complete exhaustion, burnout, uncertainty, a lot of transformation in my own self. And if I had known what this would entail in the beginning, I probably never would have did it. And I'm so glad that it was about 4 years into it, and I was like, oh my God, I'm crazy. Like, this is, it's like, what did I get myself into? And now, 8 years later, after putting in all of the effort and suffering and trust and blessings and grace, now I'm actually really fully enjoying this place, and there's moments of beauty here that I could have never imagined that were a direct result of showing up for the blessings to be received and also putting it out there.
And so do you feel satisfied, deeply satisfied about accomplishing this?
Yeah, I feel incredibly satisfied. I'm putting the last bits on my house. This season, by November, it should be mostly complete. When I moved into this house 3 years ago, there was no windows, and I was like $100,000 in debt with no money. I had like $50 and tons of debt, and I needed probably another $70,000 to finish this house. And there's also like patience that comes into play of long-term projects, and I'm grateful that I'm only 36 and I still have a lot of life ahead of me, knock on wood, and more years for this place to experience the magic that this place can provide us.
Yeah, I was bringing up the topic of satisfaction because I've met so many entrepreneurs who think systems and money, and they arrive where they want to be, they get a lot of money, many of them, but they feel so dissatisfied. They don't see themselves in what they have built, And I think the point of following a spiritual guidance is that when you build something, when you arrive there, you really like it and you really enjoy it. And this is, true happiness. And most of the time that path is harder and it takes more time. It comes with a lot more healing and hardships. But you really arrive in a place where everything makes sense. And to me, that's maybe my million and maybe yours as well.
Yeah, I was a big student of Tony Robbins. Tony Robbins said, success without fulfillment is the ultimate failure.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
There's times when this dream is turned into a nightmare, and it could at any minute, but it's also just the process of taking it all in and overcoming obstacles and being resilient. Like we went through the whole coronavirus epic in this place. We had 25 students here when that lockdowns all happened. We had to deal with that. We had an outbreak later here, so we've had highs and lows here. But I feel like when you live a life of purpose, it makes it meaningful. And we serve a lot of people here. We also take really good care of our employees, the indigenous people that support this place, and have an incredible familiar relationship with our employees. And that to me feels like rewarding. It's very rewarding to do this work.
Yeah, and not only financially, but having that internal reward, and that's the most important thing, and that's what we are fighting for.
Yeah.
Okay, so thank you for answering all those questions. It was amazing. I will put all the links in the newsletter and in the podcast little edits, so people can find you.
Yeah, and you can find us at www.arcoisissanctuary.com. It's ARCOISIS sanctuary.com. On Instagram, you can find us. You can find the Mountain Sanctuary Tea Temple on Instagram. And come visit us if you find yourself in Guatemala, Lake Atitlan. We're up on the mountain. If you weren't trying to find us, then you probably won't find us.